What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPaPa, and I'm so excited to finally be talking about Paldean Fates. Now, I feel like I'm the last kid on the bus, right? Like everybody else has been talking about it, and I haven't said a word because I've been doing so much, like just deep diving and reflecting and thinking about this set. Now, I'll be honest, I think it's a cool set. I love the cards. I've got some pre-ordered that we're going to rip as a family. You all know that I'm a big fan of the Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs. I'm trying to build out a PSA 10 collection of all of those Pokemon Center stamped ones. So I'm buying it, obviously, for that reasons. But what I was hung up on is the investability and the long-term collectability of this set, and it took me forever to try and do the research that I felt was sufficient enough to get in front of you all and say, hey, listen, here's the facts, and I will never tell you what to do. I feel like the YouTube space is inundated with people who tell you what to do, and I feel like there's a gap in telling you the why. So of course in this video, I'm going to show you a bunch of trend lines, a bunch of data points. We're actually going to go through this big long timeline of specialty sets, and it's not going to tell you whether you should buy it or shouldn't buy it. It's not going to tell you whether it's going to be a great investment or a poor investment. It's just going to be a bunch of factual information for you to come up with your own opinion on, because listen, you shouldn't listen to anybody else anyways. You do what makes you happy, and that is one of the things I love most about Pokemon collecting. Now, I said we're going to talk about some things, so what is it we're going to go over today? I'm going to look at a timeline, right? A timeline of all the specialty sets over the last 4 years. Now, why does that matter? Why is that important? Well, because we're going to talk about some of the market-moving events that have happened over that time frame, and the reactions, not just the reactions of the collecting base, but also the reactions from the Pokemon Company International, which are really, really relevant when we get into the next thing, which is the lifetime performance of specialty sets. And for that one, I went back even further. I went back over the last 6 years. So we're going to go all the way back to Shining Legends from Sun and Moon, which I think is really cool. So we're going to have a ton of different data points in order to look at the performance of these, elite trainer boxes in these specialty sets over the last 6 years. And then, of course, what really drives, the value of this is going to be, what are these chase cards like? The top cards here in Paldean Fates. I know a lot of people out there have done a lot of great content on what they are, but I'm going to show them to you anyways, and I'm going to talk to you about, where I think they fit so far in the Scarlet and Violet era, and hopefully we're going to walk away from this, and even if we don't walk away thinking, hey, listen, it's going to be a great investment, or it's not going to be a great investment, hopefully we walk away with a new set of knowledge, and we're super excited to, make any buying decisions, knowing that we have all the tools in our tool belt in order to play chess when everybody else is playing checkers. Now, before we get all into that, listen, if you've never seen this before and you like this kind of content, hit that subscribe button. We do all kinds of cool stuff like this all the time. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. Questions or comments, drop them down below. Those 3 small things go a long way in helping my small channel out. Lets me know you appreciate the work that I do. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, I promised you a timeline, and here it is. So I call it a journey through the specialty set ages, and I decided to start the timeline with Hidden Fates, right? Because you got Hidden Fates, Shining Fates, and now Paldean Fates, right? The whole Fates, eras, if you will. And the thing about Hidden Fates is, look at this. Now, the green and orange lines on this are very, very important to pay attention to. So the green and orange lines represent the average daily sale price for Pokemon cards, right? The orange line represents English cards. The green line represents Japanese cards. You can kind of forget about that because that's not the point of this video. What I want you to focus on here is the price and how it spikes, right? Like we all, unless we've been sleeping under a poker rock, we all know that the pandemic hit, and the pandemic drove prices of Pokemon cards and sealed product through the absolute roof. So the reason I have that on there is because I think it's a great representation of, at what point during the peak or the fall did these sets get launched? Because that's incredibly important when we talk about, their prices and how they've moved, and then how the Pokemon Company reacted to it, and how some of us as collectors reacted to it too. So I've got some cool stuff around that. So you look at Hidden Fates. Hidden Fates came out way before the pandemic pump, right? And it was a great set. It's got a Chase Charizard in it. It's got shiny Pokemon. Like, it's just got a whole bunch of really cool things there in the Hidden Fates space. So it also was not really hard to come by, right? Like, it's not what we see, a lot of times, and especially through the pandemic. We'll get to that in a minute, but Hidden Fates was not a hard get. You could easily pick it up well after the launch date. So that's something to keep top of mind. And then Champion's Path came out, and look when Champion's Path came out. That is right when things started to get a little crazy, right? Like, I think in the beginning of the pandemic, everybody was hunkering down. If you lived in the United States, for whatever reason, you were buying toilet paper. Toilet paper was like out of stock everywhere, which makes absolutely no sense. Just goes to show you how crazy us Americans are. But anyways, it took a little while for people to who were sequestered in their homes to decide that Pokemon was going to be a cool thing. And in the middle of Champion's Path launch, that is when we really were starting this uptick. Now, Champion's Path was an epic set, right? It's got 2 really cool Charizards on there. So I think Champion's Path was destined for greatness in and of itself. And then I called out Vivid Voltage simply because Vivid Voltage was the regular set that came out really right as the pandemic pump was starting to hit, and Vivid Voltage got printed into the ground. And then Shining Fates was the same thing. So Shining Fates came out, and these sets were not originally printed in the capacity that they were over time. So these sets were printed in a normal print run, pre-pandemic print run, and then they were absolutely sold out. They were scalped. I mean, it was freaking Pokemon Armageddon when it came to trying to get these sets, and that really had a profound impact on the price, and I thought this was really cool. So I went back on Reddit from 3 years ago to read some of the things about Shining Fates, and these were some of the comments from 3 years ago. I mean, Shining Fates ETBs were just impossible to find anywhere. You talk about LCSs selling them for $125. Look at the image down there. They were selling this for $140. In the one right there, they talk about, in the one at the very top, they talk about ETBs being sold on eBay for $95, right? And almost 450 of them had been sold. My favorite one here was this. I'm fortunate enough to work at a game store and pre-ordered 2 ETBs and a Crobat box, and the set was announced. I should have ordered more because I'll never find any at a reasonable price again. Well, guess what? That comment didn't age well because you can find all of them at a reasonable price now. And this is just a lesson that, hey, listen, sometimes when we're in the thick of it, you know, we can't always see the light at the end of the tunnel, but this is just a good case in point where we thought that, hey, listen, Shining Fates is going to be this amazing set. It's underprinted. You know, we're always going to have to pay well over MSRP, and Pokemon Company said, not so fast, my friend. We are going to do exactly what you're asking us to do. And we're going to print this to the moon. That way everybody has access to it, right? It was like this anti-scalper mission that they were on, and it was the right thing to do, okay? But now, in hindsight, all of us who like Shining Fates or anybody who wants to collect it are saying, hey, Shining Fates and Vivid Voltage, forget about it. It was printed into the moon. Why did they print so much of it? You know, it's hard to make the right decision. Nobody's going to know the perfect print run. But I think Pokemon Company did the right thing in order to combat, you know, all of these crazy prices for Shining Fates and Vivid Voltage back in the day. So, hey, listen, memory is short, but the awesome thing is we can always go back and look at it, and I thought these Reddit comments were really, really cool. So now we're going to get into the Celebration side of things. Now, Celebrations was printed on a downturn, and I'll also say we all know Celebrations is an anniversary set, so Celebrations was printed in high capacity. I will say this. The ETBs and the Ultra Premium collections were, you know, they're good. You know, they've retained some value. We're going to look at that in the next slide, but certainly a lot of those, you know, Lance's Charizard boxes, you know, there was just a lot of product to be able to found in the wild for quite a while. And then Pokemon Go was the first specialty set that was released really at the end, okay, so you see the green and orange lines are really just about to flatten out when Pokemon Go came out right there. Now, Pokemon Go is not my personal favorite set ever. Like, I know it's got, you know, the shiny Charizards in it, and it's got the Radiant, excuse me. It's got the Radiant Charizard, Radiant Venusaur, Radiant Blastoise. It's got Mewtwo set. Like, I know it's got a bunch of stuff going for it, but overall, not a lot of love for me personally, and it was certainly printed into the ground. Matter of fact, the Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer box for Pokemon Go just this last week finally sold out on the Pokemon Center, which is absolutely crazy, right? Then we have Crown Zenith. Crown Zenith was the last product of the Sword and Shield era. Everybody loved Sword and Shield era. Crown Zenith was absolutely fire, right? Like, Crown Zenith, everybody was so hyped about it before it came out. If you go back and look at those YouTube videos up until its launch, everyone was talking about what a great product Crown Zenith was going to be, and spoiler alert, it is a great product. It continues to be a great product. I will say this though, it was reprinted for the holidays, so hey, I mean, it is what it is. Like, that is what happens. Like, it is less than a year old. It came out in January of this year, so of course there was going to be reprints. Like, who knows what Crown Zenith is going to be. And then 151 was the set of all sets. It is very, very interesting to watch how this is going to perform. There is still plenty of it available out in the wild, but 151 sure has as good of a start as any Pokemon set in recent memory. So I wanted to go through all of this because I think it's important to understand how previous specialty sets have performed in the past to give us an idea of how specialty sets in the future might follow suit or might not. So, you know I love my graphs, you know I love my data, you know I love looking at things. So this is what I have here. I have all of the specialty sets going back to Shining Legends, so going back to the beginning of the Sun and Moon era all the way through Crown Zenith. I didn't put Pokemon 151 on here because it's too new. I even debated if Crown Zenith was too new, which it probably is, but I put it on here anyways. So when I'm looking at these things, here's what I do, and I'll walk you through it. So I assume, hey listen, MSRP is 50 bucks, we get it at 20% off MSRP, we get it for $40. Maybe we get it cheaper, maybe you pay a little bit more, but for the sake of this discussion, we're going to use just a flat number. We all bought them all for $40 except Detective Pikachu, right? That only had a collector chest. There was no ETB, so I said, hey, we got that for $25. And then we're going to look at the current price where it is today. Then we know how old it is, and then we can look at this annual ROI. Now, I included the ROI calculator that I use up there at the top in case any of you guys want to do it. It's a very simple tool that you can find online, so we know how much we invested in a product, and I used Hidden Fates right here. How much we invested in the product, which was $40. The amount returned, today it's worth $157. Then if you look on the right in the results screen, you'll see the investment gain is $117, right? Price now is $157 minus the $40 we invested, so your gain is $117. So your ROI, the return on that $40, right, is 292.5%, right? Almost 300%. If it was a $120 investment gain, it would be 300%, right? Because 40 times 3 is 120, right? But then the thing that I like the most is the annualized return on investment. So all that does is it takes your final ROI and it annualizes it out over the fact that this has been out for 4.326 years. You'll see I put in the exact date that the set launches and the exact date that I pulled this information. So the reason I like looking at annualized ROI is because it allows me to do exactly this. I can look at products of varying age and I at least have an apples to apples comparison versus using just regular ROI, because then it gives older products the opportunity to really perform better, right? More time usually gives us time in market is the key to long-term price appreciation. So anyways, I spent a long time explaining to you why I use this, but I think it's a great thing for us to look at. Now, the thing I called out here is before the pandemic Printapalooza, right? Pokemon specialty sets did really, really well. I mean, even Champion's Path in the Sword and Shield era, right? Then you got Hidden Fates, Detective Pikachu, I mean, Dragon Magistry, Shining Legends, all of them have performed really, really well. And even Celebrations, like Celebrations kind of flies under the radar, but again, you know, Champion's Path, Celebrations from the Sword and Shield era have performed really well. Now, again, Celebrations is it's an anniversary set, so I think that that's obviously going to carry some weight. Champion's Path, was right before the pandemic pump, so a lot of these older sets, Champion's Path, Hidden Fates, Detective Pikachu, Dragon Magistry, Shining Legends, like these were before the pandemic pump. So a lot of their gains are coming from that burst that we saw, that big bump that we saw in the graph at the very beginning. So I thought that was interesting to call out. And then Crown Zenith, just like with the Shining Fates example, like how quickly us as collectors, myself included, forget about this, but Crown Zenith for a lot of the year was at $60 for regular ETBs. If you go and look at a chart on TCG Player, for a lot of time it was up in that $60 range. There was 3 or 4 months ago, a lot of people in the Pokemon space, like Twice Baked Jake and Danny Phantom, those are guys who have channels that are infinitely bigger than me, were doing videos on, hey, listen, Crown Zenith is hard to find in the wild. Like, is Crown Zenith going to be reprinted? Like, Crown Zenith is doing so great. And then, of course, they reprinted it for the holidays. I wouldn't be surprised if they reprinted again. But when I'm talking about these type of specialty sets, I'm looking for long-term price appreciation, right? Like, we all know Pokemon Company loves to reprint things, so the first 2-3 years, we could see some reprints of these. And again, it doesn't have anything to do with how it'll perform in the long run. Yes, supply and demand is a big part of it. Yes, production runs are a big part of it. But you can print 20 million of something as long as there are 21 million people out there who have their arms open waiting to accept it. So just some interesting food for thought there on Crown Zenith. So the other thing that's really highlighted for me is I just felt like every specialty set over the last couple years had performed really, really poorly. But reality, it's just Shining Fates and it's just Pokemon Go. And I think we have a good reason for Shining Fates. I can't really explain the Pokemon Go. I don't know why they printed so much of it, unless it was just the fact that, hey, it was on the tail end of that upswing and they had already committed to certain production runs. Remember, back then they didn't own the production companies. Now Pokemon Company International, they own the print companies, so they can kind of throttle up or throttle down as needed, but back then they didn't. So they might have just submitted a huge bid and said, hey, we need X number of cases of Pokemon Go ETBs and Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs, and then they missed the boat, right? You put the order in and then the market dropped and then they're stuck with all the product, and that's why we have so much of it. So we will have to see how that all looks out moving forward. Now, what it really comes down to is the cardboard that's in the box, right? When we look at these chase cards, I think this is what is either going to drive the set, to be a good overall investment, a good overall set to hold from a collectability standpoint, or if it's going to fall a little bit to the wayside. And I have a mixture of emotions when I look at this, to be honest. I love the fact that there's only going to be one Charizard in it. Like, we've seen some of these specialty sets that only have one Charizard in it do relatively well, but then you have a set like Darkness Ablaze that only has one Charizard in it, and it certainly has not not done that great. But I like the fact that the other Charizard, now again, this is Shiny Treasures EX, right? This is the Japanese version. The US version is going to be, you know, pretty much the exact same thing. You see I have a red X on the second Charizard because that's going to be pulled out of the set, and that is going to be used just as a promo in those tins that are going to come out. So I like the fact that there's only one Charizard in it. I like the fact that it is a big set. This is going to be like 250 cards, right? Big sets with one big chase in it. It can lead to a harder pull rate for it, right? If it's an 80 card set and there's one big chase card, you know, and 12 cards per pack or 10 cards per pack or 4 cards per pack, like some of the other ones we've seen, you know, it depends, you know, it can lead to a higher or lower pull rate. So the Charizard EX, super pumped that there's only one in there. I'm going to show you the other Charizards here in just a minute. But so far in the Scarlet and Violet era, this one and the Pokemon 151 are my favorite artwork. So I like the fact that one of my favorite Charizard artworks is in the upcoming Paldean Evolved set. And then the Iono, I will say this, I like the Paldean Evolved Iono better than this. But I do think a lot of people are going to be jacked up about this. And I think Iono is crazy popular. So I think that this could absolutely be a chase card that helps drive the set. The Mew card is absolutely adorable, but guess what? We just got a Mew-a-Palooza in Pokemon 151. Gardevoir right there. Hey, listen, I'm not a huge Gardevoir person, but I know Gardevoir is incredibly popular. I know there's been a lot of playability. Gardevoir has been on the tip of a lot of Poke people's tongues here as of late. The Penny card, this is my favorite Penny card compared to the one that came out earlier in Scarlet and Violet. And I will say this, that Shiny Pikachu, I think is fantastic. Now, I don't think it's going to be a $100 card. I think that, you know, it will be a little bit rarer in my mind simply because there's 100 different Shinies in there, and I think it will be harder to pull, which is good. Again, popular Pokemon, shiny, you know, harder to pull. I think it's going to drive some value there. But I don't think it's going to be a huge dollar card when everything shakes up here over the next 12 to 18 months. But I do think that there's enough awesome chase cards here to really give Paldean Fates the opportunity to be an awesome set. I really do. Now, again, that doesn't mean it's going to be, you know, enough of a set to, you know, put your kids through college in the future. But I do think between the Iono, between the Charizard, I think that Shiny Pikachu is going to be a chase. And then I think the Mew is going to catch a lot of people's eyes, and people are going to want that card as too. Again, love the fact that it's a big set. I think that helps as well. So as I said, these are the Charizards that have come out so far. That one from 151 where he's soaring through the air, you know, I think that one is fire. But outside of that, none of these other ones get me excited. So I think that one of the very best artworks for Charizard from the Scarlet and Violet era up to this point is going to be coming out in the Paldea Involved set, and I think that is awesome. Very excited about that, although I am getting a little bit of Charizard fatigue. I did a video on that, so we'll have to see what everybody else feels like. But man, lots of Charizard here as of late. And then, as always, I do a synopsis at the end. So, in my mind, when I'm thinking about Paldean Fates overall, you know, the challenge is it's another set with a Zard chase, right? 3 of our last 4 sets that have come out have really had Zard as a chase card, right? Like, you know, Paradox Rift doesn't have one, but then you think about everything else, you know, Obsidian Flames and 151, and now Paldean Fates. So, as I just said a second ago, like, is there a little bit of Zard fatigue going on in the hobby? And then, as I said, specialty sets have shown poorer performance. You can't argue about it. You can say whatever reason in the world out of everything that I did to validate why the performance has been poor, the print runs, you know, Pokemon Go, I just couldn't make sense of. The reality is they haven't been performing that great, and they certainly have been printing a ton of them. So that is something to consider when you're thinking of long-term buy and holds. And then share of wallet is a factor, and I think it's becoming more and more of a factor every single day. I think a lot of people are still fired up about 151, and they're buying a ton of products. I think some of the Japanese sealed product is getting a share of wallet right now. I think One Piece is getting a share of wallet right now. I think Lorcana is getting a share of wallet right now. Like, listen, we all only have so much money, and there's a lot of awesome products out there right now. So the question is going to be, where do people choose to spend it? Is Paldean Fates, you know, good enough, great enough? Like, is it going to get people to open their wallet and choose Paldean Fates over all of these other awesome products? I just don't know. And again, more of the same. We talked about it, right? Like Iono, we've already had an Iono. Like, I know that in these specialty sets, they do a lot of things over again. But I just don't know if there's enough freshness in this. You know, I don't know if there's enough newness in it. I don't know if there's enough to get people excited to really pile in. But then when we talk about the upsides of this, like, there's only one Zard in the regular set, which I really like about that. I like that it's a bigger set, right? I like the fact that there's a lot of cards in here. It's one of the biggest sets we've had in recent memory. Like, I think that Shiny Pikachu is going to do well. I think that special illustration Mew and Iono, I think that gives the set a little extra thump. Like, we've seen some sets as of late where there's really only one big chase card, right? Really one card that kind of carries the whole thing. I like the fact, I think that there's enough in here. There's enough excitement around some of these other cards in order to make this more than just a one-trick pony, which is really, really excited for me. Now, again, the other thing, this kind of ties into the share of wallet. This set could fly under the radar. Now, again, I believe that Pokemon Company has the ability to throttle up print run and throttle it back based off of, you know, how much people are buying this set. So if this set comes out and it doesn't sell out like crazy, like if it's not super popular, maybe, just maybe they'll print a little less of it than they have of others in the past. So If it flies under the radar for me, that's a good thing. I always say this. I want to buy what will go up, not what has gone up. And as always, I'm telling you, I love the Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs. I think they are the hobby box equivalent here in the Pokemon hobby. I think that they have great long-term price potential. They're sold out right now. That doesn't mean that they won't restock them at some point. They probably will. But I do think Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs, especially in the specialty sets, I think that is the way to go. For me personally, I have 2 cases of Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs of this product coming in, and I also have 2 Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs coming in on the side of that, simply because I want both of my kids to get to open one. I want to send the promos in and hopefully get PSA 10s. I'm trying to build, a PSA 10 collection of stamped promo cards from all of these new Scarlet and Violet Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs. So, with that being said, listen, it's up to you to decide if this set is for you or not, but I do think that following in this the history of specialty sets over the last 4 to 6 years at least gives us some idea of what is possible. Now, if you made it to the end of this video and you like what you saw, give us a thumbs up. Questions or comments, drop them down below. And as always, if you haven't hit that subscriber button yet and you enjoy stuff like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button yet. All those 3 things mean a lot to me, and I really appreciate you spending the time. Have an awesome one, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.